The first thing that broke him was the sound of her breathing, uneven and desperate, echoing through the quiet corner of the café as if the walls themselves were holding their breath with her. She stood near the window, shoulders folded inward, one hand trembling near her face as tears slipped through her fingers. There was a bruise on her arm, not loud or dramatic, just real enough to hurt anyone who noticed. And Nathan Cole, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, felt his chest tighten in a way no boardroom ever had. The café sat across from his company's downtown Chicago headquarters, a place he rarely entered himself. That morning had been heavier than usual. He had dropped his 8-year-old son, Jacob, at school after a silent drive filled with questions he didn't know how to answer. Being a single father after losing his wife to cancer had taught him how fragile life was, but also how easy it was to look away when pain didn't belong to you. Until that moment. Until he saw her standing there alone, clearly unraveling. What if this were you, stranded in your own life with no one to call, no place to run, and the weight of every wrong decision pressing down on your chest? Her name was Hannah Moore, though Nathan wouldn't learn it until later. She was 24, raised in a small Ohio town, the kind where church bells still mattered and neighbors waved even when they didn't know your name. She had come to the city chasing stability, believing hard work could outpace fear. Instead, she found herself trapped in a cycle of low wages, rising rent, and a relationship that slowly erased her sense of safety. That morning, she had walked out with nothing but a purse, a phone with 10% battery, and the terrifying truth she couldn't avoid anymore. She had nowhere to go. Nathan didn't approach her like a hero. He didn't feel brave. He felt awkward, uncertain, painfully aware of how easily his presence could be misunderstood. But something about the way she wiped her tears, trying to compose herself for a world that clearly wasn't waiting, pulled him forward. Maybe it was the memory of Jacob crying quietly in his room after his mother's funeral, asking questions Nathan couldn't answer. Maybe it was the guilt of having everything while someone else had nothing. He simply couldn't walk away. They sat at a small table near the window, sunlight cutting across the surface like a line between two very different lives. Hannah spoke in fragments, her words heavy, her voice shaking but honest. She talked about losing her job at a dry cleaner after missing too many days, about an eviction notice folded into her bag, about nights spent calculating how long she could keep pretending everything was fine. Nathan listened, not as a CEO, not as a rescuer, but as a man who understood what it meant to wake up afraid of the day ahead. If you were in her place, would you still believe kindness existed, or would you expect the world to turn away like it always had? He offered help carefully, knowing how fragile pride could be when it was all someone had left. It wasn't money first. It was time. A meal. A phone charger. A quiet acknowledgement that her life mattered even if it didn't feel like it. He connected her with a temporary housing service his company quietly funded, one he had approved years ago without ever imagining he'd meet someone who needed it so desperately. That night, Hannah slept in a clean bed for the first time in weeks, staring at the ceiling, wondering how close she had come to disappearing. The days that followed didn't magically fix everything. Hannah woke up with the same fears, the same ache in her chest, the same uncertainty about tomorrow. But now there was a routine, counseling sessions she never thought she'd afford, job placement assistance, and a strange new feeling she didn't quite trust yet. Hope. Nathan checked in occasionally, not hovering, not controlling, just present. He watched from a distance as she began to straighten her shoulders again, as her eyes slowly lifted from the floor. For Nathan, the change was quieter but just as profound. Jacob noticed it first. His father smiled more. He listened better. He stopped rushing through life as if speed could protect him from grief. Helping Hannah had cracked something open inside him, reminding him that success meant nothing if it never touched another human being. He started volunteering with Jacob on weekends, serving meals, listening to stories, teaching his son that strength wasn't about power but compassion. Months passed. Hannah found work at a small logistics firm, then earned a certification that led to better pay. She moved into a modest apartment with creaky floors and sunlight that spilled through the windows every morning like a promise. She still had scars, visible and invisible, but they no longer defined her. Sometimes she sat in church on Sundays, tears slipping down her face, not from pain this time, but gratitude. She prayed not just for herself, but for the stranger who had seen her when she felt invisible. The last time Nathan saw her was at a charity event hosted by his company. She stood at the back of the room, confident, calm, no trace of the woman who had once cried alone in a café. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment, everything was said. No speeches. No dramatic gestures. Just the shared understanding that one small act of kindness had rewritten an entire future. Life didn't become perfect for either of them. Nathan still struggled with loneliness, still missed his wife in ways that caught him off guard. Hannah still had nights where fear crept back in, whispering doubts she had learned to challenge. But both of them carried something new now, a belief that even at your lowest, even when you feel discarded and lost, someone might see you and choose not to walk away. And maybe that's the question this story leaves behind, lingering long after the screen fades to black. If you were standing there, broken and afraid, would you hope someone noticed? And if you were the one walking past, would you stop? Before this story ends, take a moment to comment below and share what this moment made you feel or reminded you of in your own life. If this story truly touched your heart, gently reminded you of kindness, second chances, or the quiet power of compassion, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing so more stories like this can reach the people who need them most.